What's going on, everybody? Amazing Storyteller here, back at it again with another One Piece video. No, I'm very excited about this video, okay? I tagged the individual, what was his name? I've got sticky notes. Thank you so much for commenting, by the way. Caporo Veldar 2628. I really appreciate your comments. You and I were discussing previously in my short about the Yonko commanders versus the 7 warlords. Who would win? It's a fun conversation, and this isn't a debate. This is just how I think things would go down if the story was written a little differently, where we saw a showdown between Yonko commanders and warlords. And if you think about it, they're kind of similar in this way of that, like, when they're power scaled within the One Piece world, you know, the warlords are hyped up to be these guys that could rival almost any pirate on the 7 seas outside of the Yonko. But then you have the Yonko commanders who are like in a league of their own, it feels like. It feels like these guys are super powerful. And it feels like, you know, with the progression of the story, it feels like King, Katakuri, and Aokiji, being Yonko commanders, are above the 7 warlords, which just is not true. The reason it's not true are for multiple factors outside of pure combat ability. You know, they have more influence. I'm speaking about warlords in particular. Warlords have more experience. They have more wealth, they have more accumulated power, they have land, they have giant crews. So, you know, these things take into account, as well as public notoriety, because remember, the whole point of the warlord system was to deter piracy by utilizing privateers, who were pseudo-pirates. So, let's just get right into it, man. I got sticky notes. I had to keep track of everything because this is going to get crazy intense. I'm not a debater. I'm not an anime debate guy. I just like bringing up fun topics like this and seeing if there's a way I can make it work. Because, let's be real, with the progression of the One Piece story, the Yonko commanders are built up to be stronger than any of the pre-time skip warlords we've seen, such as Gecko Moria, Crocodile, Boa Hancock. You know, those individuals, they seem to look like they would get curb stomped by any of the modern Yonko commanders. However, I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Here's why. So, let's break it down. Alright, let's see what I got here. Let's see who we should start with. So, we're going to go ahead and start with King. Alright? King's a unique one because King, with his devil fruit abilities, he's obviously a pterodactyl or a pterodon. He can fly, he's made of fire, he's a lunarian, he has all these cool abilities where he can incinerate people, he's like an angel. Very cool character, very well written. Came up, and in my opinion, at an appropriate time within One Piece. I wish we would have seen King back in Skypiea, and it would have been built up a little bit more as Lunarians and Bretons and all those things. Not Bretons, what were they called? Bricka? The Bricka? NL was one of them. Anyway, that'll be a video for another day. King is really powerful. Is he powerful enough to beat the time skip warlords, or even the warlords currently? Well, the warlords that we're facing off, that we were talking about, that Caparo and I were talking about specifically in the comments section, was King versus Kuma versus Dofi versus Jinbei. Now, this is all assuming that this is a one-on-one scenario, because let's be real, any one of these guys stroll up with their crew against King by himself, they curb stomp King. I'm sorry. In a practical situation, you will not win against these characters' crews. You just can't. You're telling me that King can stomp the freaking revolutionary army when Kuma pulls up? There's just no way. There's no way. Anyway, let's get into it. So the one-on-one scenario, King versus Kuma. So guys, if you think that Kuma loses against King, you're insane. Not really, I'm not insulting you. I get it. It's because of the placement, and Toei didn't do us any favors with their killer animation. I get it. When you've been reading One Piece as long as I have, since 1999, I'm old, guys. When you've been reading One Piece that long, you understand how things progress. You understand how certain characters get drowned out by all the noise because of the nuance and the evolution of the story. Kuma's one of those characters, okay? When Kuma was first introduced way back in the Reverie era, you know, in Alabasta, we saw him marching up. The dude was imposing. He was weird looking. He didn't have pupils in his eyes. I remember thinking that was crazy. As his Bible, super crazy character. What made him so imposing was the hopelessness in 2 occasions. One, the hopelessness in Thriller Bark. Not only did the Straw Hats have to face off against one freaking warlord, they had to face off against 2 because Kuma was there. okay? And not only that, there was no hope against Kuma. Y'all forget the Sabaody arc, especially Kapporo. I can't believe you forgot about that. He can just teleport King to space, and King's toasted. What is King gonna do when he's floating out there in space? There is no Yonko commander that can beat Kuma. There's just not. They don't exist, okay? So Kuma, using his pawpaw fruit, can utilize rejection. So King can't even hit the motherfucker. He's just... And King's all like... And like Kuma's just rejecting it right back at him, okay? There's nothing King can do in that specific instance alone. Then Kuma can just reject someone's pain and get it into like a small little bubble pot and throw it at King while King's distracted with literally anything else going on that Kuma can throw at him. And he gets hit by that, his whole nervous system would just shut down, okay? There's nothing he can do. And not to mention the ultimate weapon that does not miss, okay? I know we saw S-Bear miss. That S-Bear's a freaking kid version of Kuma, guys, okay? Freaking Erusis Shock. I can't say it. It's Latin. It's Latin for bear. Bear shock. He freaking creates this giant shock bubble that's the size of like a continent and drops it on you. King would be done. King would be toasted or injured. And then Kuma can just like reject his pain and put it back into him by magnifying it, okay? Kuma has all of these OP abilities. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Oda had to freaking make him a robot to nerf him, okay? Because Kuma was legitly the most threatening warlord that there ever was. Seriously, when you look at his power, it's too OP. Anyway, not a debater. So now we're going to move on to Doflamingo versus King. This one I feel like is misinterpreted because of Toei's animation skill now. Okay, Toei's animation skill during the Doflamingo Dressrosa arc was kind of trash. But now it's top tier. So King has no chance against Doflamingo. No cap, no ifs, no whats, no buts. King has no chance against Dofi. I'm going to tell you a few reasons why. Number one, Doflamingo can just insert parasitic strings to control King, and King will have no idea what's happening to him. That's one. Two, Doflamingo has extremely strong Conqueror's Haki. Extremely strong, okay? And you're talking about post-time skip Luffy getting his ass spanked by Dofi on a couple of occasions. King has no chance against the parasitic strings that are amassed from every single inanimate object in the vicinity. Dofi will rise like a god with armament-infused, Conqueror Haki-infused tips on these spears that are so mobile King can't escape it. What is King gonna do? Fly up? Great, great. Birdcage. Bam. King gets diced into 1,000 different pieces. He's gonna use fire? Great, they're Conqueror-infused. King does not have Conqueror's Haki to my knowledge. He might have, but even so, Dolphy's on a whole different level. Doflamingo, you guys forget. I forget this. I was doing research for this video. I forget that Dolphy was like a pseudo Yonko, guys. Doflamingo was a major threat. Still is an Impel down. He's being freed. But he was a major threat. He was working in coordinates with Kaido. I doubt Kaido would be able to kill Doflamingo. Just being straight up honest with the power that Doflamingo amassed in the underground, I would find it extremely difficult for Kaido to kill Doflamingo. It just would be. Like, Doflamingo can run away through the sky. Kaido can follow him through the sky, but like the strings are so freaking annoying. Anyway, that's another video. But as far as King is concerned, there's multiple ways that Dolphy could defeat King with the string fruit alone, not to mention the freaking Conqueror's Haki aspect of it. And King is a fairly reasonable individual in comparison to Dolphy's psyche. Dolphy would be willing to sacrifice everything to defeat King. I don't think King has that kind of resolve, okay? Don't let Toei's animation fool you. Dolphy is on a different level. He is certainly the closest Yonko outside of Mihawk and Crocodile out of the Warlords, period. Alright? So that's Doflamingo uses a string fruit in the combination of Conqueror's Haki with his awakened ability, stomps King, no diff. We're moving on. Alright. Now the fun begins. So Kapporo, I totally understand. This is where I agree with you. When we're talking about Jinbei has very low feats within the story. And he doesn't have Conqueror's Haki to our knowledge. He's got decent Haki in general, but nothing that stacks up against King. King would probably toast Jinbei. Now, we have seen fishmen in general. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Jinbei in particular. We have seen them have fire resistance just because of them being fishmen. Okay? But Lunarians are on a different level. It's not the Marinomi. This is like hot, hot flames. Okay? I don't see Jinbei without circumstances beating King. I just don't. I don't. Like, technique-wise, Fishman Karate's on a whole different level. Jinbei, if he had no water, he's getting pretty diced up by King. However, in the event that Jinbei does have access to an ocean, there's not much King can do. Jinbei can judo hurl a freaking stream, catching King out of the air and dragging him to the depths of hell that is the Mariana Trench, and just watching him suffer for a little bit until he drowns and dies. That's the legitimacy and the realism that Jinbei carries, because him being a non-Devil Fruit user, extremely decent Haki user, and a skilled martial artist, he could totally hold his own against King. It wouldn't be a no diff on King's end. It would definitely have like some pushback. Look at the fight against Who's Who. You have to remember that Toby Roppo were not significantly far apart from the All-Stars. That gap was like, no, you guys are expendable. As in the All-Stars are expendable. Remember, King, Jack, and King had to fight for their place to remain All-Stars. And that was crazy. It was like, I think it was actually Jack, where they were like, listen, you know, if they do this, they get to fight you, and you're gonna be fucking ruined, Jack. And Jack was like, speaking of which, all the Warlords cap Jack. Are you kidding me? Jack's a Yonko commander. Throw Jack in the trash, dude. All of these guys beat Jack. So, anyway, in the event that Jinbei fights King, there would have to be outside circumstances that are catered to Jinbei's advantage. There's just no way Jinbei can beat King without these advantages. It would be very difficult, and it would take some expert writing, to be honest with you. It would have to be Haki-based or an unseen Fishman karate technique, which would be really cool. It would build to the culture of Fishmen in general to see something that was like super OP that only Fishmen had access to. So I'm going to leave it at that. Jinbei gets defeated by King. However, the other two Warlords, Kuma and Doflamingo, smash King. And if you want to talk about the other Warlords, we're going to get into it. I'll include them. But in the event of Caporo's comment, this is how we broke it down. So we had King fighting Kuma, Dolphy, and Jinbei. King gets defeated by 2 out of the 3 Warlords, possibly Jinbei, if the circumstances were right. Moving on. I'm going to chuck that into the trash. That was not bad, guys. We made it through one. Made it through one of the Yonko commanders. All right, now we have the second Yonko commander. When we think of the top echelon of Yonko commanders, we think of King, and we think of Katakuri. All right? Katakuri, we have matched up against Crocodile and Moria. Simple as that. Sorry, I was reading my notes. I gotta look at these things, guys. I've got brain damage. Anyway, so when we're looking at Katakuri versus Moria, I know what you guys are thinking. Moria? Katakuri wouldn't even need to breathe. And at a glance, you're absolutely right. Katakuri would smash Moria, wrap up the video, let's get out of here. Except you're wrong. You're wrong because you forget. You forget that Moria has access to taking Katakuri's shadow and watching him burn in the sun. Because Katakuri, you're assuming that everybody knows everybody in the One Piece verse. Okay? Luffy's crew, let me reiterate, Luffy's crew knew who Moria was, but didn't know his Devil Fruit ability, okay? These things aren't public knowledge, guys. There's not freaking Morgans is taking notes on the Warlord's Devil Fruit abilities. It's not happening. No. In fact, they didn't know Crocodiles either, so that's certainly not happening. No. Here's the thing. Excuse me. Moria can take Katakuri's shadow, and Katakuri will stand there and watch because he's a prideful individual. Okay? So now we're talking about the psyche of these two individuals. Moria would just rip that shit up, cut it, throw it, put it into like one of his zombies, and then Katakuri's like, what the fuck? Now the zombie's moving like the Mochi Mochi no Mi and just pounding Katakuri, and Katakuri's like moving around, and then Moria just gets him out into the sun, and Katakuri's toasted. Okay? That's without hockey. That's just what Moria can fucking do. Not to mention the numbers that freaking Moria can create. Moria can like take dead relatives of Katakuri, bring them back to life, and freaking stomp Katakuri with those individuals. If they were hockey infused, what are you gonna do? You're like a pseudo Logia. You're spreading yourself out to make yourself a bigger target. We saw that with Smoker versus Virgo. And Moria has numbers. He's got sheer numbers. And, he was a pre-time skip Warlord. So if we introduced hockey into the mix, dude, hockey-infused spears with 1,000 zombies. Katakuri can't fly. He's got to come to the ground at some point. They just chuck those hockey-infused spears. It's over for Katakuri. Its sheer numbers will dominate Katakuri in that regard. Not to mention, and everyone seems to want to dismiss this, Moria was defeated by Kaido. But he fought Kaido multiple times. He was listed as a rival. Okay, we understand that Kaido kills his entire crew. There was a point within the story where Moria and Kaido were rivals, and then Kaido got enhanced power and wiped out Moria's crew and diced up Moria himself. There was a point in which Moria was a match for Kaido, because Moria, genetically speaking, was a menace, dude. Pre-time skip Moria, not even pre-time skip Moria, excuse me, like early One Piece Moria would dominate King, Katakuri, both of them. He was a menace, dude. His physical prowess was second to none. Moria was a strong individual. He was a strong pirate. There was no doubt about that. He was able to fight Kaido to a standstill multiple times. Then he got his ass beat by Kaido eventually. We don't know how that happens, unfortunately. But even without that history, Moria's Devil Fruit ability alone carries him super far against Katakuri. And then you add hockey into the mix, and it just becomes a numbers game. It just becomes a matter of time. Katakuri would have to run because Katakuri's shadow would be easier to grab. He starts doing his mochi shit. Moria takes one hit. He's not done. Moria's not a weak-ass bitch. He's a bitch, but he's not a weak-ass bitch. He would definitely be able to tank one of Katakuri's punches, and then he just grabs his shadow and rips it, right? Because Moria can do that. And then Moria can use that same shadow and stab Katakuri with hockey-infused shadows. Like, Moria's OP. That's why he was written to be such a lazy bitch. And again, Katakuri wouldn't know any of this. Katakuri would be completely blind. Okay? So, Moria would definitely defeat Katakuri if they fought. And you add hockey into the mix, it's really not a difficult thing for Moria to be able to do that. So, Moria beats Katakuri for those reasons. Now, Crocodile. Crocodile is one of those individuals where I feel like he was introduced way too early into the story, and there was no hockey, and Luffy beat him by shenanigans, okay? Luffy beat him by exploiting his one weakness, which is water. Katakuri will not have this information. Nobody had this information. It's how Crocodile was able to take over an entire nation, okay? Imagine hockey-infused Desert Espada. These are like 4 tyrannical blades coming out of Crocodile's arm made of sand. Okay? They're like glass. They're like obsidian. They're super sharp. They're directed straight at Katakuri. There's no dodging it. He's splitting the very earth further down than Luffy can see. Katakuri's not dodging that. Katakuri gets hit. He gets diced. It's over. It's over. He's against a Logia. Katakuri's a pseudo-Logia, but Crocodile is a pure Logia. There's no beating Crocodile, especially with hockey. If he's got hockey-infused powers with his Sunasuna no Mi, Katakuri gets curb stomped. No diff. Okay? Not to mention the dehydration part of his Devil Fruit. He touches you with that right hand. You're drained. Katakuri is drained. Katakuri and Luffy have the same fighting style, where they are all brawlers. Okay? Katakuri ditched his trident, dude. He ditched his trident. And even with his trident, it's so easy to see coming. Crocodile would just disperse. Now, here's the thing. I know what you're thinking. Katakuri has observation hockey. You didn't mention that against Moria, where he can see into the future. You're right. I didn't mention that. Now that I'm thinking about it, let me revise that. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. Because, again, what is Katakuri going to do? He now knows that he cannot assault this warlord because this warlord will take his shadow. He now knows that he can't assault this warlord because this warlord's going to stab him with utilizing grains of sand. Do you understand how overwhelming that would be from Katakuri's standpoint? Anyway, Katakuri's future sight against Crocodile, it wouldn't work because of how overwhelming their fruits are. Same way with Moria. They're just overwhelming devil fruit abilities, overpowered devil fruit abilities. That is the perk of being written in early One Piece. These devil fruit abilities are overpowered as hell. But even with Katakuri's future sight, he can't really predict reflexes. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say, Crocodile uses Desert La Espada. Crocodile definitely has more experience than Katakuri. He's definitely older. Katakuri goes from behind him to do like a counterattack, doesn't use his future sight because he has to willfully use that. It's not a reflex ability where he just doesn't think about it and it just happens. So he dodges Crocodile's Desert Espada somehow, comes behind him, tries to punch him with Mochi. Crocodile grabs his Mochi arm with his other hand and just dehydrates him. And then it's over. It's over for Katakuri. And even without that, Crocodile is a goddamn Logia. He can turn into sand. He can turn other objects into sand. He can compile sand. He can manipulate sand. Katakuri's Devil Fruit might have a natural weakness to fucking sand. You ever put flour in mochi? It gets hard. It gets really hard. It gets brittle. Same thing with Crocodile's Devil Fruit. The dehydration factor alone, the bonding of it alone, would make it impossible for Katakuri to keep controlling the mochi itself, and it would become really difficult for him to move, and he would sacrifice his mobility to try and get a strike in at Crocodile, and that's when Crocodile would win. So again, Crocodile beats Katakuri, easy peasy lemon squeezy, my boys. And that's how the Warlords, or specifically the lower echelon of the Warlords, would defeat the Yonko commanders. And Caporo Vidal, I can't say your name, I apologize. Caporo, I really appreciate your comment. I hope you keep doing so, and I hope you subscribe. I'm going to make a Discord eventually where we can all come together and just have little talks about this. Because, I'm in, a free space where I can say whatever I want and there's no repercussions without somebody commenting. So I would love to see what the counter arguments to these are. That would be super cool because you have to agree that the Yonko commanders would just defeat the 7 Warlords. It's just, they're too progressive in the story. It's really difficult not to see that perspective. But anyway, guys, let me know what you thought of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please, I'm trying to make it to 500 before December, and I will see you guys in the next one. I love you all. Have a great night. Bye-bye.